I have a question, and I know you're not going to answer specifics on this, but it does have to do with the roster construction.
Sure.
How important is it going to be for certain young guys to make sure that they get at bats
During the season?
During the season, and as early in the season, even though we know that they project as big leaguers at some
Right.
point.
But that's the beauty of having good players,
Yes,
or what we think are good players.
right.
That
But that's a big consideration, isn't it? To make sure
to
that
keep guys playing. Yeah,
yeah, and that may mean that they don't
Yes,
make the big league
that-
squad.
for sure.
Yeah.
And that happens across
All of it.
all the baseball, all teams. When you have those types of players who are getting close, it just might not be their time at that moment. So to keep them playing regularly, which is what they need to do because they're regular players, they have to be sent back. And, there will probably be some decisions that are made, from that standpoint.
It's kind of different from other sports where you get to the regular season and your cuts or your opening day roster, that's really your roster. You don't make other sports, you don't make that many significant changes. This one, someone you send down could be.
Yeah, I don't, again, I'm not, I don't know how the NFL or the NBA, how they go about it. But we know that in our sport, 162 games, there's going to be, some changes in the roster. And with that, there's playing time for those guys that come up, right? In other sport, and the NFL, that happens a lot due to injuries, right? And most of those guys are on the, are either on the second team or on the taxi squad or whatever they're there
But
with
they
the
don't
team.
come off the practice squad and start. Not a lot.
Yeah,
But they don't have minor leagues either where they can send guys out to play.
to play, yeah. So, and I think there are players who, where they are in their careers and where they are and who they are as players are better suited to potentially be a bench player than other players.
Right.
And we've talked about that. Just their, how they play, their type of game, their head, their ability to handle, being a guy that, starts most of the game, on the bench.
Pat Blake, of course, is one of the guys who.
Pat,
he's a rare breed.
we didn't know how that was going to play
Yeah.
out. Pat was an everyday regular player in the minor leagues, was an everyday collegiate player. But, coming up and being a reserve for us and being able to contribute, told us a lot about who he is as a player, most importantly mentally.
Smith was that way.
Seth was that way? Okay.
Where he gets called up that September and tears it apart as a pinch hitter and winds up the general the roster to even get into the postseason.
And
It's. Oh, go ahead.
And the other part of roster construction is you have situations where guys are out of options versus guys with options. Looking at the bullpen with Ross Cup there, but you also have Diaz who's pitching well, Estevez who could be coming. Is that going to be kind of a decision that's based
Yeah,
A on the opening day roster and B on maximizing the number of people you have?
Yeah, those decisions, I think a lot of times will play themselves out even as you get closer. These next couple weeks are for us when we go through this and we watch players play and we watch how they're playing, both pitchers and position players. Some of those decisions will be clear and some might be maybe not so clear, that we have to make a hard choice. But, you can make sure of this, that, as it comes to each guy, these are well thought out decisions and why. And, in most cases, we can explain most of them. And there's probably parts of it we won't be able to tell you publicly.
Right.
which is always, the case.
Sure.
We want to, most cases we're extremely open about, what, but there's other times, as you guys know, we can't
Right.
say certain because there might be a lot of things going on behind the scenes, whether it's trades or,
Right.
something happening, or a guy's health, or, he might not quite be 100%, but he's playable. But we'll be, very thoroughly processed when we make these decisions.
When you have young pitchers, you have competition for your rotation. You have young pitchers that are trying to make that next step in terms of adjustments, the things that need to be, make them better. How hard does that get into your decision making? Because they might not be pitching quite as well as they're capable of, because you're trying to learn the new thing.
Yeah. Well, we always have that in mind. We know what, we know just, from the time we got here and until where we are now and where we're going to be. I mean, these conversations about, what a pitcher needs to do, and there might be mandates that we want to see those in games, and we will not look, strictly at performance. We'll just look at, those things that we identified in maybe a particular game to work on, and it might affect his performance. So we're aware of that. So that's why a lot of times, especially on the pitching side, not so much on the hitting side, but on the pitching side, you might, you guys might not know, or the public might not know, on a specific day what a pitcher was really trying to work on, and it might have affected his performance. That he wouldn't do this in a regular season game, but we need him to do it in spring training to practice, because we know in the long run he's going to have to do this in a big league game.
Which is another reason why you said multiple times, spring stats, in a lot of cases,
right.
They don't need very much.
They
at all.
don't. And you need the repetitions, in spring training to get that comfort level to take these whether it's, mechanics, whether it's pitch selection, whether it's, type of pitch, whether it's, a new stance for a hitter, whether it's mechanics for a hitter. You need the reps, and the performance might not be there, the production, the stats might not be there, but the hitter's gaining confidence, he's getting more comfortable trying what he's working on. So
To that point, I think Mr. Marquez starting today.
Yes. Yeah.
He was awesome his first few starts out. His last start, he got rocked a little bit. What did
his last start was
Dodgers, 8 runs, 2 1/3, I think. Something like 8 runs, 6 hits. No,
Yeah.
6 runs,
he
8
got
hits.
he got beat
yeah
up.
he got beat up. Yeah,
For a young guy like him, and we know
he had a very good first inning, right, and then he had a bad second.
we know how talented he is. For a young guy like him, how important is it, especially during spring training, to learn, to take the time to investigate during spring training, to learn what he did or didn't do,
Right.
and take it to the next
Very important.
game?
Yeah, we're looking for the quick adjustment.
Yeah.
and the quick learn from your mistakes. I mean, with him specifically, his last start, there's some things that we identified that he tried to do and it didn't work.
So is this an experimental thing?
Well, not so much experimental, but there's some pitch sequencing and pitch location that we wanted him to work on,
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't do it. That's part of the reason why he got hit.
Okay.
But he tried some things that, we know that he needs to do, and he couldn't execute them. So, and hopefully we'll see now that, hey, he had a bullpen session. He has a heightened awareness of, hey, I tried to do this last week and it didn't work, so I got to do it. I'd see if I could do a little better this week. This start.
And so in some ways, spring training, and I know this is an oversimplification, but it's a little bit of a laboratory, isn't it? Sometimes?
No doubt, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's simplification. For some guys, yeah.
Yeah. And as you said, sometimes we don't, us meaning beat writers, sometimes we don't know what the experiment
Right.
is.
Well, I don't want to tell you,
No, of course not.
publicly. I mean,
No, of
that's,
course not.
uh,
But there is like
Right.
sequencing or
yeah,
pitches.
sure.
Try to execute this pitch in
Yes.
this situation.
Yes. No doubt about it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And I guess the catcher's learning goes into that too, because the pitcher can get, if the catcher's trying to work something that maybe doesn't fit with what you guys have in
Right.
plan.
Well, usually we have the catcher involved in this too, as far as, whether it's a certain side of the plate, that a pitcher needs to work on. He's really good on one side of the plate. Hey, today we got to work on this side of the plate because that's a little bit of your flaw. So let's do that today. Okay.
That's one of those cases where you talk to your players on that to make sure that.
Talk to him every day.
Hey, I remember I was talking to somebody yesterday about this, but I think early in the season last year, Joe Madden used Wade Davis, didn't go three in a row early in the year. Notice, I understand he's pitching on the backfield today. Is that something, do you want to build him to be able to go 3 in a row out the gate, or maybe
Out
two
the
in-
gate, probably. That might. We ran into that last year with Greg, if you remember.
Yeah.
We used him the first 2 days, and he was not going to pitch the 3rd day of the season. He wasn't going to pitch 3 days in a row to start the season. So you can probably suspect similar plans.
When do you get to the point to where maybe you feel you can do that with the same?
I don't know whether there's one date, but your eyes sort of tell you certain things about how they're throwing. They're the pitchers, conversations with us about how they're feeling. These are all daily discussions where based on the on the physical is probably the thing that stands out the most in this.
Is it?
Mentally, most pitchers who get to the big leagues are really pretty good mentally. Most players are. So it's the physical part, whether, this is a conversation where, I have to, trust the player and know the player that, hey, going 3 days in a row today is fine. He feels good. His pitch count's been down. His pitch count's been down the last week. I mean, all these factors go into it. Last year with, as an example, opening day or opening series, I just don't think it's, the right place to, throw a closer or any pitcher 3 days in a row. Doesn't have to necessarily be the closer.
Right, yeah, you space it
Yeah.
early in the year for everybody. Yeah, I was just wondering maybe if it's like a month in, you start.
Yeah, I mean, you can see these factors. Their previous workload. It's mostly workload and what's going on in and around that 3rd day.
Do you, I know McGee has closed before, but early in the year, is that how you balance it? Maybe have McGee close on those days where Davis isn't available?
Or Shaw, or Ottavino,
so you,
or Dunn.
so you don't,
or Russin.
you don't set up a backup closer, quote unquote.
No. Well, again, I'm making references to last year's because it's last year as opposed to, hey, remember 4 years ago, but Greg threw the game 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now here we go to the opening, our home opener. We had a save situation against the Dodgers, right? 2-1 Freeland's game,
Yeah.
and McGee got the save, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to Greg throwing 5 out of 6 days, right? So I mean, it's sort of a lot of it. It's just it's pretty straightforward, common sense how to use guys.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other times we like to think, even though it is 3 in a row, it's still common sense.
Yeah.
It isn't
That's
like a big
easy.
stretch.
Yeah.
It isn't like a, whoa, you're using them 3 days in a row. No, I mean,
Does Coors Field play in?
somewhat. Well,
Because it's a little.
just the I guess again from the physical nature of altitude.
That's,
But that's where the players, our discussions daily about how you feeling, how you doing, how's your arm, and their honest feedback to us is so critical and important to our decision making.
You mentioned after yesterday's game that, from your vantage point watching Tyler, I think you said you can tell if it's up or down, but you couldn't tell
Right.
the whole zone. Have you gone back and looked
Yeah.
at his What is, now that you've seen it, Dan,
Yeah.
what is your assessment
I
of his
thought,
performance?
well, again, I think the balls that were hit out of the park were sort of in the middle part of the plate and not to either corner. I think the 3-2 changeup to Trout was up in middle. The home run to Marte was down-ish, but sort of middle part of the plate. It didn't get away from him, which is what you want a changeup to do. You want it to, in Tyler's case, fade away from the right-handed hitter. It caught a little bit too much of the plate, even though it looked as though it was heading down, and he he sort of lifted it out. So I think, like I mentioned yesterday, I think it was a little bit of combination of a little bit of, maybe not as low as Tyler thought, and more middle of the plate. Because it happens where players hit homers on good pitches. It happens.
Sure.
But I think yesterday, that maybe wasn't truly the case.
No reason I asked, you'd mentioned yesterday, and you mentioned it before, Tyler he's a location guy.
He's a location guy.
He's got to
Yeah.
be, he's got to.
And there's certain games when his stuff is a little bit crisper.
Right.
Than than other nights, and he can get, like any pitcher, he can get away with maybe some what a pitcher would call a mistake, or a pitcher not hitting a spot, and he can get away with it with a little bit more life on the fastball, or the cutter slider had a little bit of late break and it got off the barrel. Yeah, those are things that can happen on a certain night where a pitcher might be a little bit crisper.
There were no red flags as far as velocity or anything that, at least I can see.
His velocity might be, here, March 15th, 16th, might be just a little bit down from where he's going to be during the season. Like I said, I think he's still sort of growing into his stuff, I think. He's 2 weeks away, because I think there's another mile or two in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay.
Thanks, bud.
You got it.
Thank you, Ben.
You got it.